Good morning, good afternoon, good day, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. Tonight's show is titled The 2008 Presidential Race, and that's pretty big, but my guests tonight are going to handle that very well for you, I'm sure. And I may kick in a few words of my own along the way if they let me. For your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about whatever it is that they decided to talk about. So, of course, tonight we're going to talk about the 2008 presidential race and anything around that associated with it, and we'll see what just happened spontaneously. And we didn't talk too much about what we were going to talk about during the show because I wanted it to be spontaneous, because I can tell you ahead of time there's a couple of things that I may bring up where I may not be in perfect agreement with my two guests tonight who are on the same point pretty much of the political continuum as I am. I'm a leftist, liberal, progressive, and some other terms like that, which is the opposite of my cameraman on camera number 3, Rick, who's a right-winger, so far right as we've had this ongoing fight for a long time. Hi, Rick. Good to see you again. So, as you know, the show goes in about 3 segments where I talk to my guests about who they are personally. They get an idea for my viewers about where you're coming from when you have views and opinions about the presidential race or anything else. So people will have a little idea about your background. And I won't get too personal because I'm not being my psychologist tonight that I've been a long time ago. So let's start off with, who are you? Who shall I start with, Lupita, or you?
The chair.
The chair. So to my left is Lupita Maurer,
yes, Lupita,
who I've known for a while, and to my right is Steve Packer. And say a few words about who you are. See if we're going to start with you first, Lupita.
I'm a citizen of the world.
Citizen of the world.
Born in Mexico City, raised there, worked. Well, we've talked about this before. I lived in California, and my husband and I moved here to Oregon 13 years ago. So I'd like to travel with my children so that they see different people, different ways of doing things. I take them to rich countries, poor countries, and try to learn from all of them.
You've been to a lot of different countries?
Been Latin America, Central America, Europe, and...
it's been so long since you were on, I've forgotten this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, as I said, I come from Mexico. I came up here when I was a teenager. My grandfather was a senator, signed the Mexican Constitution down there, and I bring a lot of liberal ideas from home, like you.
And again, how long have you been here in Oregon?
In Oregon, 13 years, and the United States is going to be 21. So.
21. Do you have a religious preference? If I ask you a question that you don't want to answer, I just don't answer.
No, that's not a problem.
Okay?
I used to be Catholic, and right now I'm a member of the United Church of Christ.
So are you religious?
I'm spiritual.
Spiritual, okay. What's spiritual? What does that mean?
I tend to connect with God and nature and in people rather than structured religion.
And how long have you been like that?
3 years.
Okay. You never know what's going to come. And formal education, is that going to be useful for the viewers to know about you?
Sure. I'm a computer science engineer. I work on high tech. I'm a programmer. He just keeps looking at me.
But on the previous show, my guest was a computer guy and software. And at my age, all this stuff just goes over my head, and I try to... Dennis, don't say anything. My director, he's one of those weirdos, too.
We're not that bad. We're not that bad. Steve is also a computer geek, so just so that you know, you're surrounded.
Okay, I won't talk about that stuff anymore. And so we talked about your work and your children and your political persuasion. How do you see the mainstream media? Is that left or right or center?
Your cameraman is going to get mad at me, but I think
He always gets mad.
they're totally biased to the right. They're owned by the corporations.
And your memberships in political or social organizations, we talked a little bit about that.
ACLU, NARAL, Pro-Choice, Democratic Party, big time.
My gosh, you are a leftist.
Doctors Without Borders and all of those charity organizations. I don't know. I can't remember all of them right now.
Why do you belong to the ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union?
Why? It all started because one of our very best friends, his name is Brandon Mayfield, got arrested, and we didn't think about this till it happened to our friend, and he was taken without cause, and his house was broken into without a warrant, and there was a certain amount of violations that I decided we could not stand for. So I joined, and I will never drop. So.
That's familiar, that name, Brandon Mayfield?
Yeah, he got arrested here in Portland, accused of the Madrid bombings.
Yes.
And he was innocent, so.
And they violated his civil liberties up one side and down the other.
On the other, that's right.
Yeah.
His daughter is my daughter's best friend, so that's how we know them.
You got your progressive credentials big time. Let me ask you, do you know of think of any persons from the past or alive today that you particularly admire or look up to?
Well, certainly my grandfather, who championed for the Native Mexicans, poor Mexicans' rights. But here in the United States, I admire Eleanor Roosevelt and how she focused on the poverty and all the needs that the country had, and focused her husband before the war to focus on all the economic problems that people had. So she's plus female, so I'm a great fan of her.
Yeah, man, I don't know what else to ask you, because you're just so right on with good stuff here.
Thank you very much.
Can you make me laugh?
Well,
Not you.
I just did.
Okay, last question. What's it all about?
It's about eating with family, drinking with family, and helping others.
Eating with family, drinking with family, and helping others. Okay. Shall we go over here?
Oh, he's fascinating. You're going to love him.
Why does she say you're fascinating, Steve?
Maybe because we're both computer programmers.
There it goes again. Yeah, but why does she say that?
I don't know. Why do you say that?
Yeah.
Steve has a perfectly calm demeanor that when adversity hits, he's solid as a rock, dependable, and amazing friend.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and you're both. No, let's skip that for now. And when and where were you born?
So, I grew up in Eatonville, Washington. It's right at the base of Mount Rainier, but I was born in Connecticut because of the war. I have no connection with the East Coast. I grew up in a small town of 800 people from first 18 years of my life. I didn't know there was something bigger than Tacoma or Seattle. But I went to the University of Washington largely because minimum wage at that time could pay for college education. So I got a college education in computer sciences, and I haven't been back.
So what year were you born in?
I was born in 44.
44, okay. And do you have a religious preference?
I don't. The last time I went to church was Unitarian. I rather appreciate their lectures.
That's irreligious almost.
Yes,
yeah.
To a certain extent, but it was Jefferson's religion. And
sure.
To me, religion forms, it has two primary purposes. It tells us why we're here and how to behave. And after a bit, especially in a Unitarian church, those things become melded together and you know how to behave. You don't need to be constantly reminded of it. So I like to think I'm a moral person, that I don't need a set of laws that tell me how to behave. I think I've learned that.
Well, how and where did you learn that? How to behave?
Yeah, the lectures in the Unitarian Church.
Okay. And partner? Do you have a partner?
I do. I've been married
To my best friend.
for a long time.
Uh-huh. And can you say her first name?
Karen.
Karen. You want to say something to her? Karen, which camera 3?
Steve, it's not that hard.
No, it isn't, but I was waiting for that red light. You should.
Fix the tire lights, Dennis. Camera 1.
Just tell her you
So
love
Karen
her.
is quite a remarkable person, and honestly, I think she helped me in this life journey of finding a path that was to a higher purpose. In many ways, you know, I think she saved my life.
Ah, saved your life. What would have happened had you...
I'd have been a
not-
conservative. I don't know.
Don't look at me that way. How do you see the mainstream media? Is that left or right or centrist?
It's commercial driven. And honestly, I think changing the fairness doctrine was a huge mistake. It allowed programs like O'Reilly to come and say whatever they want without being challenged. They don't have to worry about giving free time if they're not fact-checking. But that's not the only thing that they failed to do. We had at the beginning of television, and perhaps in radio as well, a requirement that using the public airwaves, required a public service. And so radios and television used their news as a way of giving public service. Since they didn't have to make money at them or sell commercials, they got Pulitzer Prizes. We don't see Pulitzerizers for news anymore because it's all about entertainment. And entertainment is fine, but it's appalling from a point of view of a democracy. And then the last thing is the consolidation of ownership. It's awful that the television and radio stations and newspapers are all being consolidated with a very small number of people controlling them. I don't trust them anymore.
So there's a small number of people controlling. Are there any liberals, progressives in this cadre that owns all the media? I couldn't keep a straight face on that. Say a few words about the fairness doctrine. What was that about?
Well, at the time, it was required that if you made a political statement, a statement of opinion, and that was to be challenged, you had to give free airtime to the opposition.
If you owned a media...
Right. You didn't have a comb to come on and be a foil. You actually had to allocate some free time, and the very best people came in and gave the alternate opinion. So it caused some moderation, some fact-checking. People in the news media really wanted to be able to say, this is fact. I've given you fact, because otherwise they might be challenged and have to give up free airtime.
Gone are the days of Edward R. Murrow and those kinds of guys. Yeah.
I mean, that's before my time, but I would have loved to have had it.
You know what I'm talking about. When there was a sense of fairness and room for alternative points of view that are presented. But anyhow, the media is by the wayside for the time being, and we're going to have to figure some sort of way to have the media be responsible and fulfill its role that's evolved for it. I see the media as being like another branch of government which has much power, or even more power, than the other branches that are the executive, the Congress, and the judiciary. The media has more power in what it can do in having people think the way they want them to think. Do you agree with that or not?
I do. I mean, especially if you look at Fox News, it seems to me that they repeat the mantra and the message from the White House, you know, and so I do agree with you on that.
How about memberships other than the Washington County Democrats?
Well, my hobby is fishing.
Fishing?
Fishing.
You kind of look like old Papa Hemingway. You know that?
Well, I do like my fish big enough to be scary. But It's a dying sport. Right now, young people are not getting fishing licenses. Fishing license sales are dropping off. Everywhere along the Oregon coast and along the Columbia River, the sports fishing and commercial fishing industries are dying. And the oceans themselves are in deep trouble. We can see that, but we can't quantify it. There's very little science. There's almost no attention to trying to understand the core problems. So I have started to join fishing groups. The one that I like best is called Northwest Sports Fishing Association. And this is a group of people who make their living selling products to sports fishermen. And unfortunately, that group has not yet learned how to be an effective spokesman from that point of view. And other organizations like lumber, power, irrigation, they all have very powerful lobbyists. And so sports fishing is dying out.
Okay.
So, for example, right now the Columbia River's carrying capacity, according to estimates what it was like before we built dams, has been diminished to where today it's only at 2% of its capacity.
Wow.
Or maybe less. I mean, it depends on your estimates here.
So you have a real passion for sports fishing.
Did you notice?
Plus, he shares the fish, so I'm happy too. I get some of the fish too.
What's your? Never mind.
We'll give it to you later.
Okay. What's wrong with America today? And then I'm going to ask you what's right with America.
Wow, I wasn't prepared for what's wrong. I like this country, and I travel all over the world. As a computer programmer, I traveled through many parts. For example, I've been to India several times, and honestly,
I know, I told you.
When I get back to this country, I'm willing to kiss the ground.
Yeah.
There are things that we do that are so remarkable that we don't want to lose them.
Yes.
And one of them is our tolerance.
That's right.
Tolerance is a hard thing to learn in life, but we need to be tolerant of race, religion, gender, national origin, disability, and, yes, sexual preference. If you can get to all of those, you're a different kind of person than the person who has a prejudice that one of those or the other. And there's something special about this country that we highly value people who are.
Generally speaking, your average American citizen has all those qualities and those thoughts and beliefs.
Yes.
Yeah. When you mention you want to kiss the ground when you come back, I've done a little bit of traveling, and I always have that great feeling to get back home, get back to the U.S. of A.
We all do. I mean, it's like you've been gone and it's stressful. It's good to be home. I'm talking about a general feeling of well-being and just wonderment that we live in this country. This is quite a remarkable place. And that's not to say that there aren't other places that are like that. But there's something special about Americans that we value the rule of law. And you can't tell people, here's a set of rules and have a moral society. You can't write those set of laws. But here, we have this innate ability to say, those are the rules, but there's other higher rules that we follow about honoring the rule of law. And it works. It's really quite remarkable. I'd say the same thing about Canada, too, but...
Then if those things you're saying are true, then why is it that our country is held in not so high in esteem by a lot of other countries in the world, not just those who have a reason to be mad with us?
I'm sure there are lots of reasons, not the least of which is it sells commercials. But when I go to other countries, one of the things that most often people ask me is, can I help them get a green card? They may not like America, but they don't want to be here to work. And I spent a large part of my career helping people get green cards. That's kind of appalling, isn't it? And the reason was the American universities aren't producing high-quality, high-tech computer programmers. I mean, can you imagine? I was in this business for over 40 years, and most of the time I was trying to hire. I had 10 to 15% of my time hiring. I couldn't hire them. We're just not producing enough.
Why aren't we producing enough?
Well, if I had known that answer, I'd probably be doing that job instead.
Any thoughts or ideas?
Well, first of all, my profession, computer programming, I thought would be 50% female. When I started, half the women were in mathematics, went to computer science. A lot of them were coming to computer science. It suddenly became nerdy, and now you can't even get one to go to school.
Well, there's a sucker or two, but yeah, he's right.
It's sad. It should have
very
been.
sad.
It should have been a career for women, but it's not. So if you just take half the pool of intellectual capability and say they're not going to be engineers, there's not too many left. There's not enough of them left.
So, and considering what's wrong or what's right with America, and we have an election coming up, but we might talk a little bit about the topic of the show, the title of the show, the 2008 presidential race. Is the 2008 presidential race going to have any effect on things that are right or wrong with America and America's behavior on the world scene?
Well, if I had one thing that I hope we do is to come back to honoring science. And I believe the fundamental value that we bring in science is to collect facts and assemble them in creative new ways and then apply that to intangible problems. And the key here is facts, not opinions. You know the difference between a fact and opinion, but facts are very tightly defined by science. And if you can put them together in creative ways, you can come up with some remarkable solutions. And if we begin to honor science or go back to honoring science, I think we're going to get some remarkable solutions to the problems that face our country.
So the problems that face our country, what are those? A couple of those. And this is open now to you too.
Well, it's ignorance and fear.
Ignorance and why is our country ignorant?
Well, I believe, having worked with girls 13 years old, that they're afraid of math. They're afraid of science. They think they won't be able to succeed at it. So fear goes from school, fear of terrorism, fear of what's different, what's, you know, that's what I the psychologist here is getting a little worried.
All right. I've got a high sign from my wonderful director in there that it's time to take a break, so I better listen to him. And his young son there is saying the same thing too. Thank you. It's time for a break for about 3 minutes. We're going to put up on the screen some important information you may want to write down during the break. So get a pencil or a pen and some paper in case you want to jot down a few notes. We're going to tell you about broadcast information during the break. For you viewers who live in the Washington County part of the Portland, Oregon metro area, Conversations with Dr. Don shows are broadcast 5 times each week. Typically, a new show is first aired on a Tuesday and is rebroadcast on the following Friday through Monday. We also have a live call-in show periodically. We'll have a slide up for that sometime here in October. We'll be having another live call-in show, and when we have those, we're live, and you can call in and talk to my guest or me about whatever we're talking about then, or ask questions, or give me a hard time, anyhow. And for you have friends who don't have a TV and they have the internet, they can watch Conversations with Dr. Don on the internet. We'll have a slide up telling you how to do that. And so we're going to put up on the screen now during the break those 4 panels, and then we'll come back and talk some more about the 2008 presidential election. So can we put those panels up now, please? still watching. You came back. Thank you for hanging in there. For you viewers who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals, and about whatever it is that they want to talk about. We've talked about all kinds of things before the break, and now we're going to talk more directly about the 2008 presidential race and things more related to that than before, instead of wandering all over the place. Lupita says, what are we talking about? She didn't. And you are indeed as interesting as she suggested you are. Charming. Okay, what did you think about the conventions, the Republican convention and the Democratic convention?
Well, we were both very lucky to be delegates.
You're delegates?
For the state of Oregon, and we were there in Denver. So I wasn't at the Republican convention. I don't think.
I was going to ask a smart question, but
I know where you were going with it.
You can see it in my eye. So how was it at that convention?
I cannot say that it was fun. I think it was emotional. I think it was powerful. I think it was spiritual, transcendental, but not what I would say fun.
How did you get to be qualified to attend the convention? You're a delegate.
Yeah, I had to run for the seat against a couple hundred of women, I think. And I sort of had luck and got there.
So the organization you belong to locally?
No, I ran as a party leader, and because I chaired the Democratic Party in the county, and
in which county here?
Washington County.
Here in Oregon.
Oregon.
Yeah.
So that's how we got there. Steve had to run in the first CD.
And how did you get to be a delegate?
We campaigned. I mean, this is truly a campaign. We talked to a lot of people and got them to sign up to come to the convention, and then everybody who was signed up to convention, we called them up and talked to them and told them why we would like to be a delegate, and some of us were elected.
And locally, you're both a member of the Washington County Democrats?
Yes.
And you are the chair?
Vice chair.
Vice chair. Okay. Democrats. How is it that you're Democrats instead of being Republicans or something else?
So the first half hour we kind of went through that, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
You don't want to start that.
I'm trying to be provocative.
Yes.
All right. So let's move on. So what do you think of McCain and Palin?
So let me talk about the convention, because not many people have an opportunity to go to an event like that. And for us, it started at 7 o'clock in the morning, and speakers from all over the country came and spoke to the Oregon delegation. And then we would travel to the convention center itself, and there was the caucuses where, once again, we were had the opportunity to hear people from all over the country in an up-close and personal way. And I was inspired by some of these people, and I think an example was Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota. I had not seen her speak before, but in an environment like we're in here, with this many people, well, maybe more than 3, but I was blown away. This is quite a remarkable person. We're going to see more from her.
And what's her name again?
Amy Klobuchar.
Okay.
She's a senator from Minnesota.
Okay.
But then there were things that you didn't see on television. And I don't quite understand it. Is I recorded it and then came home and watched it again. And there were 2 things that struck me. The governor from Montana, Schweitzer.
He was incredible.
Oh my gosh. He had this whole audience stop their chatter and paid attention. On television, they just blew it off. So you all missed that, and that's too bad. And then the date of the
Acceptance.
Yeah, when we were all in the stadium with 80,000 people, whatever it was, they brought out 5 people, just average people, who spoke about what the last 7 years have done to them, the economic policies and how that affected them in their life. They were powerful. I don't know how someone could get in front of 70,000 people and be that personal. And yet they were just honest and
candid.
Yeah, and you missed it. The television stations blew it off. It's sad. I wish we could have done it without commercials. Maybe on C-SPAN they did. I don't know.
Yeah.
So you can't take that experience that we had and how emotional it was, and translate that to anything that I've ever seen on television.
So you think this is part of the democratic process that speaks well of our country and our system and what we're about?
I do, but honestly, when we met in the 1st Congressional District, these are people who come from Astoria and from Columbia County, which you know, St. Helens and Multnomah and Washington County, those areas. Oh, don't need to say Yamhill as well, but many of those people had never been to a political event before, and they all said how much it changed their perception of their role, that it's more than just voting, that you need to get out and do something. And so they were much more engaged in the National Convention because they participated at that first level, that first round of conventions. So I think we've done something remarkable. If we talk about what happened in 2000, would they have 30 people showed up to this convention? We had 400 show up this time. So something's happened.
It's exciting.
It's exciting. There's a transformation coming.
Yeah.
The transformation, what's the transformation going to be?
Well, as I tried to describe, it's people beginning to say, I have to do more than vote, I have to participate.
So they're participating like they did at this convention, and you ended up getting the candidate that you wanted in Obama. I'm looking for the result of your participating in all that you did, and what, the end result you're looking for is to choose a candidate and to have a platform for the Democratic Party, right?
Right.
Well, sure it is. I mean, but that's, I mean, me personally, I tried to tell you before, it's to help this country be tolerant and to be progressive in its problem solving. And I think Barack Obama is the kind of candidate who will bring that. And there are many others that I would have supported as well.
Okay. Are you happy with Obama being?
Oh, I'm delighted. I was an Obama person from the beginning.
What do you think about his choice to be vice president?
Joe Biden, I didn't know much about Joe Biden until I went to the convention, and I was very touched by how he took care of his 2 children after his wife died in a car accident with a little baby girl. I didn't know that. Having just lost my mom, I understood how difficult it is to be a parent without that, you know, motherly figure, and how he tried to step in and take the train 2 hours each way so that he could kiss and talk in the children good night every night. He's a person that definitely is not rich, and you know, is an average Joe and works really hard for the people. So the 2 of them, do you think, stand a decent chance of winning the presidency against McCain and Palin?
We'll see, won't we? It's a horse race.
It's going to be hard.
It's
but
very close, and we're all on the edge of our seat and quite nervous.
Yes, we are.
Why do you think it's so close?
Again, I think it's fear to change. You know, better the devil that you know than the devil that you don't. I see a lot of people that are hurting, especially at work. A lot of people getting laid off, losing their homes. You know, and unemployment is up 6.1% right now. 75,000 jobs were lost. People are hurting. The gas prices are horrible. Yet they don't know what they will be getting with Barack Obama. They see a young face. They don't know what he's all about. He's brand new, and sometimes it's hard to jump in and go for the unknown. I mean, we know what McCain is all about. We know it's same as all the other 8 years we've had. So I think it's a little bit of fear. What do you think, Steve?
Well, when we get a bunch of Democrats together, they talk about issues. We want to talk about issues, and we end up arguing about issues. Where we get beaten is on tactics.
Yeah.
The Republican Party can turn out the vote, and we can't get out of the room because we're still talking about issues. Issues are important. It's what brought us together.
Yeah.
And it certainly differentiates us which side you want to be on is based on the issues, but ultimately it's in the tactics. And we have a heck of a time turning out the vote. So something is happening in this country. Barack Obama helped flip this thing. And right now, all of the campaign in Oregon is about registering people to vote. They've registered 120,000 new voters in Oregon. When you think about the measure, the margin of winning for Bush was 6,000 the first time and 12,000 the second time. I don't know, something like that. It's very, very small. Oregon is a quirky state, and it's a swing state. We've registered 120,000 voters. So if they think we can get them to turn out, just get them to vote.
Which isn't that hard. All they have to do is put a stamp on the envelope and mail it, you know?
What about the rest of the country? Because Oregon is vote by mail, but the other states, you have all sorts of procedures and going to the booths and the computers are counting the votes. Do you think we're going to have a fair count of the vote in 2008 across the country?
Almost everybody agrees that counting votes in this country is in sad shape. And Oregon may be good at getting out a level of participation because it's easy to get your ballot in. Mm-hmm. But we have an awful lot of people on the rolls who are registered voters in houses that don't exist. They've moved. Mm-hmm. We find them all the time when we're going door to door. So we're not keeping track of them, but we don't want to purge them. That's what happened in Ohio and in Florida, is they had massive purges, which, you know, hurt a few people on the other side, right? So I don't know the right balance. So we do have to do something. That's clear. The thing that's troubling me right now is the news that's coming out about mailing out fictitious requests for absentee ballots. And it's happening in some of the battleground states. And it's real early data, but this seems like a tactic to get people confused about where to vote and how to vote. And we ought to be nonpartisan in making certain everybody knows how to vote, where to vote, and their vote is counted. That ought to be our position, and not to be partisan. I don't think we're there.
What do you think about the D-Vote and those companies that have the secret software that has the vote counting machinery?
I'm sorry, you're talking to a coder, right?
Yeah.
So think of this. We have a CEO of D-Bolt who has created conspiracy with his managers all the way down to coders and testers who are going to change an election. That whole list of people have to be traitors. I can't believe it. I can believe in incompetence. We saw, I think it was in Ohio, where they brought a machine in and inadvertently put too many people on that one machine. The machine had a limit of holding 5,000 votes. When it hit the 5,001st vote, it didn't give an air condition, and it just let people keep voting, and it threw them all away. Mm-hmm. So hundreds of people voted in that race, and their vote wasn't counted, not because of a conspiracy, because of incompetence. I don't trust D-Bolt. I don't trust D-Bolt because they told me that their voting machines can't print a
paper ballot.
Mm-hmm. They can't print a paper ballot.
Mm-hmm.
My gosh, I could find hundreds of coders that could solve that problem for them.
Well, they do print a receipt when you go to the ATM. It's the same company. They make ATM machines. You go to the bank, you deposit your money, and you get a receipt. It's the same concept. I can't understand why they say they can't do it.
No.
So I'm asking these questions because there's been some credible complaints from the previous presidential races that votes were stolen or not counted, and there was some chicanery afoot. So I'm wondering what's going on for 2008 that will minimize that, if not eliminate that kind of stuff.
Okay, but that requires a conspiracy of people who are traitors to their country. It's hard for me to believe in that. But it is possible that one person, misguided person, would make a confusing ballot, as they did in Florida. We're seeing confusing ballots, or we're seeing few voting machines in a black precinct and lots in a white precinct. Those kinds of things are out in the open and perfectly legal to do.
I don't believe so much the machines, but I do have issues with the phone banking. I can't remember which state it was, but the Republican Party jammed the phones to turn out the vote of the Democratic phone bank. and they were prosecuted, and you know. So I think that certain people do try to suppress the vote, which is different from stealing the ballots.
There's a tendency when we hear the word conspiracy to discount the argument or the complaint, and there are things that occur, and whatever you call them, the end result is that the people who are guilty of doing it are getting the result they want, so that they have an election result that suits their desire, their interest. They are most, never mind, I'm going to my ex now, let's stop. I'm afraid that they're going to steal the election. There is a them, and it's a right-wing Rovians, extremists who are not interested in having our voices be expressed objectively in the voting process in this country. In previous elections, there was so much stuff going on, and it wasn't fair. I'm losing myself here. I just hope there's something we can do to be sure that there's no fraud in the 2000 election.
If we turn out massive amounts of people, you know, these elections were easy to steal if they were stolen because of the small percentage of difference between both candidates. If Obama wins by a landslide, what are you going to do with all those ballots? Are you going to make a big pyre and burn them? I mean, we have to turn out massive amounts of people and win. So this is a call for the community to go out, talk to your neighbors, join the party, help the campaign, call your family, and make sure that they go vote.
So, do you have any thoughts or comments you can volunteer before I ask you any more questions about your activities in your local Democratic Party and what's going to be happening in the presidential race between now? Is this dirty politics and competition going to go on now until November 4th? Like some of the ads on television and the lipstick on a pig and all those kinds of things. Is it going to get worse? Or are they going to swift vote Obama?
How would we know? I mean, we're a county party.
Yeah.
Our job is very different than that. And those campaigns run however they run, and they're certainly not going to ask us. But we have very specific goals, and a certain number of people, I don't know why, but a certain number of people are not going to vote in this election. Even today, if you ask some of them, they'll say, is there a race? They haven't made up their mind. They're not, especially if you're talking about Democrats, they're worried about their mortgage, their job, they're having a hard time making ends meet. There's so many other things that are important to them that they haven't made up their mind. And what we've learned is that those people are persuadable, that we can get them to vote, and they will vote Democratic. There's been some experiments done elsewhere that just asking someone to vote increases performance by about 12%. About 12% increase in turnout if you just ask them to vote. So that's what we're doing. And Howard Dean has created this wonderful program to help us identify at-risk voters and go out and to talk to them. And that's what we're doing. We're spending less time on mailings, less time on television. We're actually going out and talking to people we think might vote Democratic and getting them to vote. And the Republicans have always done that better than we did. We're going to beat them this time.
All right. So if Obama wins the presidency, are things going to be different in the Middle East? Is he still going to send more troops to Afghanistan?
Well, you know, last I checked with the Pentagon, we don't know. I mean, I'm hoping that he will use diplomacy where it is needed, and of course in Afghanistan, I believe that we do have a big. I heard today that we had the most deaths ever in Afghanistan this year.
Yeah.
And if we had not been distracted with Iraq, we would have taken care of business there, and our kids would be home by now. So I think that the focus has to be where the people that really attacked us.
Yeah, so let me get this out of the way, because I'm aware now that I keep asking you these probing questions to go beyond what you're involved with the local Democratic Party. I am unhappy with Obama's position on probably 3 major issues, and what's going on in the Middle East with Afghanistan sending more troops, and his health plan is going to have the insurance companies involved. And as far as I'm concerned, no insurance company should be involved in the health plan. And there's a couple of other things that I think he's trying to appeal to the center. And for people like me at my age, it's almost impossible. I'm a Nader supporter. You can see where I'm coming from, and I'm just hoping there's some sort of way I can get people like you or whoever else is involved in this process to pressure Obama to go more progressive and still not lose the darn election. And that's what I'm about.
The problem with that is his career started long ago, and the people who helped him to become the candidate are people unknown to us, and he's certainly not going to give us an opportunity to go talk to him and give him some advice. So if you roll it back, you have to start when the politician starts. And so if you look in Oregon, there's some truly remarkable young people who are coming up who are in a different mold. And we're trying to help them be elected, not by the money that comes from PACs, not the huge amount of money. I mean, you know it costs, Karen Minnis spent $1 million holding her seat. You think that's rational?
No, it's just a
That's
state
not
seat.
democracy. Yeah.
No.
Yes. So $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 to run for the Oregon legislature, and you make $17,000 a year. Where does that money come from? That money is access money, and those politicians are beholden to them. And it's my hope someday that we can elect some of those people, and that they won't be beholden to that money, and they'll instead go back to their district, hold town hall meetings, start talking to people, and find consensus. It'll never be your vision, because your vision is pretty radical, and you've cut off at least half the voters with those. So any vision of progress in your direction has to bring along some of those others that are skeptical or doubters.
And it's got to start on the grassroots level.
It's got to start at the
Yes.
grassroots level.
So let's just talk about your health care. A company like Tektronix or Intel, where I came from, are self-insured. Do you know why? Because the profits of insurance companies are staggering, and they can do it better covering the health care costs of their employees, but they can't manage it. They hire the insurance companies to manage it, and you have to manage it for 2 things: holding costs down, negotiating with the doctors, and holding costs down with regard to what you're going to cover. Because if you take either lid off, it skyrockets. And the insurance companies do a pretty good job of that kind of bureaucratic holding down costs. And if you look at a company like Intel, they would order all health care in some priority and say, we'll pay for it down to here, and everything below that, we just don't have any money, can't pay for it. So right below the cut line, and this is a real case, is a woman who needed a lung liver transplant, and it was below the cut line for the Oregon Health Plan. And she didn't get any money for it. Do you remember that?
Yes.
But there were thousands of people, mostly children, who got covered by the Oregon Health Plan. So ultimately, those are the kinds of really tough trade-offs we have to make. Remove the profit from covering the healthcare costs, pay for high-quality people to do administration, and draw a cut line on some things that, I'm sorry, you just can't pay for.
And you have to look at the big picture too. I mean, what Barack Obama is basically saying is 47 million Americans do not have health care. 47 million Americans need to be covered. Now, the details of the plan are not going to be the ones that he has on his table right now, because that thing has to go through Congress. And Congress is going to butcher it, turn it apart, put it back together, and something totally different is going to come out. So the idea, the big picture is, Obama is saying 47 million Americans need health coverage. McCain is saying nothing. Where's his plan? How is he going to cover all those people? At least Obama has a plan that will go to Congress and something different will come out, but people will get the coverage they need. So all these plans are going to get, turned into little pieces in Congress and put back together, and something else will come out. So whether you agree or not with the health plan, that's not the issue. The issue is he wants to cover the people, and he's going to work to get there.
I want everything, and I want it now. I'm aware of we're running out of time. And Dennis, my director, is yell at me in a minute. And a half a minute or so, is there anything you can say to the viewers that would be useful for them in this coming election period, or in the election, or whatever we've been talking about so far? Who will go first?
See?
Oh, please.
Well, I think that if I had to give a message, it would be of hope. Things can always get better. People are suffering right now. They don't have money for their mortgages. Read the voters' pamphlet. I am for the Democratic Party. I want you to vote for Obama and down the ticket for Jeff Merkley and all the local Democrats. But at least get involved. People in my country and other countries are dying for the right to vote. And we have it here available with a postage stamp. So don't waste your opportunity and get involved.
Vote, get involved. Okay, how about you, Steve? Any message for my viewers?
I would say go find an opportunity to meet your local legislator. Some of these are really quite remarkable people, and it's where you get started learning that voting is not enough, that you have to be engaged in some way. And that might mean give a little bit of money, and it might mean give a little bit of time. I mean, today I think it's somewhere in the 1 to 2% of the Americans do anything other than vote. And I can imagine what it would be like if 10% did. We'd transform this whole country.
I think that we're heading in a direction that can only be reversed by a national strike or shutting down the system, the economy, and force them to change, as it's historically been in other countries. When a regime has gotten so oppressive, it either is overthrown violently, which I don't advocate, or the people just shut it down, and then the people in power at the time then lighten up and allow the citizens. Oh, it's time for me to stop now. I just yelled at my director. Okay, thanks for watching, and thank you for coming on. I'm so glad you did. I don't have time for public service announcements, but I do have time to thank you, viewers in other parts of the country, and my crew and everybody else who helped on the show. And we'll finish with KFC. You know KFC and not Kentucky Fried Chicken?
No.
Dr. Don's KFC. Kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind. Be friendly and be charitable to you too. You and you.
Thank you.
And you. Thanks again for watching, and good night.
Boy, that went by quickly.